All right, we're live. Welcome to CPG Vibes. Gavin, what number are we on? Number 183
I
this
think
week?
I think that's right. I think
That's
that's
one.
5 or 6, or yeah, I think maybe episode 6 for us.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as usual, we're going to bring our guest, who's a very close personal one to me this week, and I'm really excited about to introduce him to our audience, Steve Black. We're going to bring him in shortly. I have a quick read for this week's sponsor, or our ongoing sponsor, I should say, and that is Creative Kaiju. And real quickly, if you run a CPG brand and you need design help, Creative Kaiju might be exactly what you're looking for. It's like having your own design team, but without the cost of hiring in-house. For one flat monthly fee, you can request as many designs as you need: packaging design, pitch decks, social posts, whatever. No contracts, no hidden fees, just fast, reliable design made for growing CPG brands. And if you use the code, all one word, CPG Vibes, in the box, you'll get 10% off. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but I'll read it to those for those that are listening after the fact. It's www.creativekaiju, all one word. Kaiju is kaiju.com/CPG Vibes. And that takes care of the sponsor. Gavin, anything before we bring in our guest?
Wait, I just want to say, man, like I'm really excited for this episode. I hope everybody that's watching is too. We had Allison Kane on last week, and she touched on the 3 C's of leadership, which were clarity, communication, consequences. I'm looking forward to all the things that we're going to talk about with Steve today.
Yeah, same. And I think it's a good segue into bringing Steve in, and I'm going to do that now. Steve Black, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is long overdue. We actually had Steve scheduled last year before his book came out, and we're going to get into his book and more about Steve here shortly. But the book was a little bit delayed or something, and we delayed. We were going to do it, and long story short, he's here now, and that's all that matters. But as a quick introduction, I'm going to let Steve give his own introduction, but I want to give my own little spiel. I made a little post about Steve yesterday. And what he's meant to me personally as a mentor, and as a friend. I shared that in late early 2018, my wife and I were coming back from a vacation, and I had the fortunate blessing to meet Steve for a little bit, spend some time in New Orleans. I don't know if you remember that, Steve,
I
but
do. I do
you
remember.
and Jim and Clint spent some time. My wife and I toured a couple of stores, and what I said in the post yesterday was absolutely true. I left and I looked at Renee and I said, that guy's a dynamic leader, and again, like I said yesterday, long story short, less than a year later, I was in Louisiana working with Steve and his group. So I think for me, this again a long time coming. And Steve, I don't think since I left Rouses, which was in June of 2020, I don't think I've actually met you in person, right? I mean, we've
Right.
talked on the phone, we've
Right.
texted and emailed and all
Yeah.
those things, but we haven't actually been together in person. Am I right?
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. Well, that's long overdue as
Yeah.
well. But I can go on for days. But I'd like to turn it over to you and give you, let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, thanks for having me. 3 years ago, I semi-retired from Rouses and spent the next 6 months writing my book. And that's really what I wanted to do was semi-retire and move back here to Colorado full time, and really work with people that were interested in improving their people. And that's what I always talk about. We're in the people business.
Right.
We just happen to sell groceries. And so I saw a post the other day from Simon Sinek, and he said, 100% of your customers are people. 100% of your team are people. 100% of your investors are people. So why we wouldn't focus as an industry on people it just boggles my mind. But I also tell you that what I've seen a big need for post-COVID was a need for a culture reset, because as you guys know, COVID turned everybody, people, processes, systems. As you guys know, the bill rate from the wholesalers and the vendor community was tough, and so you almost quit doing everything you did up to that point to be successful. And we really need a culture reset. And the culture reset is just the foundation then to build on the company's core values. And that works out really good. And then obviously then fulfill a mission statement. So I've had a blast the last 3 years, really bringing the message of the 5 rules into several companies, dozens of companies across the country. And now I'm seeing through my masterclass is so many people in the stores, because I've always said, and I learned this at Rouses through my Saturday email message that I used to send out. I did that for almost 6 years. Every Saturday at 10 o'clock, I'd send out an email, and there was 4 parts to it. There was the first part was obviously the business snapshot, what was going on in the business. Middle part was keeping Mr. Donnie Rouse in front of the teams. And it was just a fun little segment. We called it, What's Mr. Donnie Thinking? And then the third piece was what I call the difference maker of the week, because I love going into stores and catching somebody doing something amazing. And so they would be my difference maker of the week. And then I'd end it every week with a fresh written leadership nugget. And, it'd be short, it'd be something relevant. And I love that my style is to tell a story, then bring the leadership lesson out of it. And that I've learned in my 50 years, that's how I learn the best. And that's how my team learns the best. So again, I have over 300 of those leadership lessons, that I had written over the years, and several of them did make it into the book. So, but anyway, so where I'm at today is I'm kind of known as the 5 rules guy. So when I get introduced to people now, I'm the 5 rules guy. So, but tons of experience in retail, conventional, and natural and organic specialty, but it's all about people.
Right.
So Steve, you have quite the resume. I don't think I've actually seen one where you go from like chief technology officer or VP of IT to VP of procurement and buying and then operations and all that kind of stuff. You literally started out in the store at 12 to 14 years old as a bagger, worked your way up to a store manager by 2021, 22, and then just kept evolving and kept growing. Just give a quick snapshot of that, and then we'll talk about the 5 rules.
Okay. Well, and it is interesting. I did start out in Western Oklahoma in the grocery business, and I was my mom worked in one of the stores in the town we lived in, and I'd just go down there and hang out with her, and then she worked in the meat department, and I'd just start racking bottles or bagging chickens or whatever, and for free, by the way. I was just hanging out, and obviously that's when I really kind of got the bug for the grocery business. And when I was 15 years old, that store, I was working then, going to school, but I was opening the store on Sundays, doing payroll, if you can imagine at 15. But it's just, I felt like I had a leadership longing then. It's how do you lead people, and how do you have fun at work, and how do you develop people? And then went on after got out of high school and went to work for United Supermarkets of Oklahoma, and started out as a produce manager pretty quickly, and then a co-assistant manager and store manager, and managed 3 different stores. And that was about 1987. And then we put in scanning systems. And so technology had always kind of been my area of expertise in the stores. So when we put in the scanning systems in our company, spread it all across. We had 27 stores in Western Oklahoma. So I converted all the stores from non-scanning to scanning. So that's where I learned technology, kind of learned it on my own. And then went on to be the head buyer there at United. And then when I left there, went to Buy for Less in Oklahoma City as head of purchasing and head of IT. And then went to Bruno's Supermarkets in Alabama, was senior VP of center store. Spent a couple of years there. And then that's when I kind of made the shift out to Phoenix with Sunflower Farmers Markets on the natural and organic side of the business, and came on board there as director of IT, and then went on to be VP of IT, VP of marketing, VP of operations. And then when Sprouts bought us, went on to, then with Sprouts, I was VP of operations over all 3 companies that they had just between Henry's and Sprouts and Sunflower. So I was VP of operations there. And then about 4 months before we went public, I was the chief information officer and chief marketing officer, a new combined role, kind of new for the industry. And so I was there for, 2 or 3 years, and then on to Rouses Markets here in Colorado as president. And then I spent a couple of years here, and then went to Rouses as president and chief operating officer. So that's kind of my career path up to this point. So again, just leading and managing thousands of people across multiple states. It's why I always get back to people. It's all about people. And if we do the people thing right, we're going to be successful as leaders. And if we don't, we're going to leave a wake of dead bodies and people under the bus that aren't very happy, So this really is the key to not only a successful business, but it's a key to a successful life, because these 5 rules, they work at home as well as they work in the workplace.
With that, Steve, tell the audience what the 5 rules
well,
are.
I was going to say, I've got to jump in real quick about the 5 rules, and Steve's going to tell us what they are, but I just want to show my arm here. I still, to this day, as I mentioned, I started working for Rouses in early 2019, and I got a bracelet the first day I started there. And as I mentioned, I left in June of 2020 to go to San Diego and be closer to our daughter who was out there. And still had my bracelet, still wore it every day. And I remember one day, I don't know what I was doing. My bracelet broke, and I panicked. I freaked out. I literally texted Steve just then. I'm like, Steve, I took a picture that my bracelet was broke. I said, help me. And like, I don't know, within a week, probably a couple days, I had a whole bag of bracelets, and I started passing them out from that day. And this is one of the ones he sent me there. But I'm going to let him tell what the 5 rules are, but I just wanted to share that story because that's truly, for me personally, how impactful Steve has been for me, and the 5 rules have been. So Steve, take it away. The 5 rules.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the thing that the way the book's laid out is I got the 5 rules, and then under each rule, I've got 5 life lessons on how to do that rule only better. Because what I've learned over the years is a lot of times people hear the 5 rules, but they need a little bit more to it. And so, one of the, I'll tell you the 5 rules first. So rule number 1 is do your job, and it's do your job. It's do your job. It's do your job. And the way I explain that, it's okay to hurry. It's an action word. So do your job, and then do your job. Don't worry about everybody else. Just do your job. If everybody on our teams would just do their job, the whole world gets better. And then the last one is focus on do your job. You're getting an adult paycheck, so it's okay to give me adult performance in the way you do your job. And I'm the same way. We all make adult money, so it's okay to perform. And I always say this, I never wanted to back up to a paycheck, because I wanted to give way more than what I got. And that's always worked out. It's always worked out. I never had to lobby and interview and orchestrate promotions that I got. They just came, because when you're people focused, process minded, tech minded, those are my 3 separators that I talk about in the book. But anyway, rule number 1, just do your job. And rule number 2 is be kind. Rule number 2 used to be nice. And a lot of people misinterpreted nice as soft. And there's a difference. And I talked about that in the Shelby report, I think in last month's leadership article. But we got to be kind to each other. I've worked in places that I was just blown away by how mean we were to each other. And it's like, wait a minute, the enemy's out there, not in here. So we have to be kind to each other. And you never have any idea. When I do my presentation, I play the Chick-fil-A video that talks about, customer service, and you have no idea what's going on in people's lives. And so it's okay to be kind to them, because again, you have no idea what they're walking in carrying. And it's just important that we be kind to each other. And trust me, I believe today, that's probably the most impactful rule, is we need more kindness today than we've ever needed it. Because again, I think post-COVID, everything got turned upside down. we got a lot of angry people in the world, and it's easy to be kind to kind people. It's not so easy to be kind to unkind people. And it feels like there's more unkind people in the world today than there's ever been. So again, that's why I think the be kind rule is so critical today. Rule number 3 is no surprises. My goodness, it's all about communication. And as a former CIO myself, I can't tell you how many times I'd get surprised by something I didn't know anything about, and I could have fixed it weeks ago if I'd have known about it weeks ago. But usually the spark turns into a flame that turns into a roaring fire, and then you got everybody freaking out. And it's just, you got to have a no surprises rule, and you got to communicate to the right people and do it as quick as possible. So don't be afraid that, you know, everybody always used to tell me, well, you're so busy, I hate to bother you. And my answer was, bother me. Please bother me. It's okay. I can have, because as you guys know, people in positions like what I've had, you can get things done quicker than sometimes other people can get done. So my job, and I heard this from the former CEO of Yahoo, she always said that her job as a CEO was to get obstacles out of people's way. And I always felt like that was my job too, is to get obstacles out of people's way so that they can do their job and they can be kind and they can have no surprises in their day-to-day work life. And then the 4th rule is no drama. and that's always a big hit when I talk to companies, because as we all know, there's so much drama in the world, in people's lives, and they bring it to work. And they also have a lot of drama at work, and sometimes we bring that home. And I talk about this a lot, but I have this drama towel. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but believe me, there's a lot of these around hanging up, and there's a drama towel you hang up by your back door. And when you come in from work, you reach over there and wipe that work drama on that towel and go into your house and be present. If you got kids at home, I promise you, your kids could care less about the stress and the drama that you really have a natural tendency to bring home. And same way, when you leave for work the next day, you wipe that home drama on that towel and go to work and do your job. And the reason you don't need to bring home drama into the workplace is everybody else has their own home drama. So it just becomes a cesspool of drama and gossip, and there's not a lot of work being done. So trust me, if we can get drama out of the workplace, you talk about being happier and easier to be kind, is when there's no drama in the workplace. And then the last rule is protect the brand. And that used to be a rule that I called protect the mothership, because as you guys know, in multi-unit organizations, you can have things happen out in satellite stores that could bring the mothership down. But from a protect the brand standpoint, I always focus on people. We're the brand. We got to protect each other. We got to make sure that we have given people the tools to do their job right. We want to hold them accountable. We want them to hold us accountable. And then at the end of the day, when we protect the brand, and trust, I really truly think I could write a whole book about protecting the brand, because there's so many pieces to it. But the main piece is that we got to protect each other. And it really doesn't matter what logo's on your shirt. Doesn't matter what logo's on your business card. If you're a good person, you're probably going to be interested in protecting everybody in the organization. And we never need to have an opportunity or see somebody shoot our own wounded. And that happens a lot under the protect the brand conversation, is we got to help each other through tough times. And trust me, we've all had tough times in the workplace and in our personal lives. But those are the 5 rules. So they're pretty simple. They're easy to remember. And like Wade said, I always wear 2 wristbands, because if anybody ever asks me about the wristband, I'd take it off and give them one. So that's kind of the way I spread the word there. But we've got a lot of ways to keep the 5 rules top of mind. They need to be part of the orientation, and it's got to be buy-in from the top down. It won't work if an organization has executive leadership that thinks, well, those 5 rules are for everybody down there. No, it starts at the top. And if it doesn't start at the top, it's not going to be successful, because you can't have 2 sets of rules. And that's one of the things I remember telling my publisher, because I told him that the 5 rules levels the playing field. when everybody's expected to go by the same rules. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, did your dad ever tell you not to do something that he did?
Facts.
And they both laughed and they said, absolutely. And so that's what you can't have from a top leadership standpoint, all the way down an organization, is that you got to live by the rules. And I'm always been okay. And Wade could testify to this. I was always fine with you calling me out. If you thought I broke a rule, call me out, because that's how we can be accountable to each other. And I also have said we need to have open conversations among us when we think we've broken one of the rules, because titles are for everybody outside an organization just to know who to contact. Inside an organization, the titles need to go on the floor. And let's just do what's right for the business and for our teams.
Yeah, that's Gavin. I know you're chomping at the bit to ask questions. I've got to say a couple things real quick. One, Steve, I don't know if you saw the comments I put up here, but we've got a couple ex-Rouse employees that have moved on, but you're still influencing. We've got Michael Barnt saying Steve was and still is a huge inspiration for me in my career. We've got Marty Thompson. My bracelet is on as well, Wade. And I think it's just a testament of how influential, and our good friend Jeff with Brand Arctica said, do your job, Bill Belichick. But people always talk about coaching trees, right? And the branches of those trees.
Yeah.
And what Steve has done, myself included, is, you're seeing his branches and hearing them firsthand. Employees that have left and moved on, but they're here today. And so I did want to say real quickly, if you're tuning in for the first time or it's been a while, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, search for CPG Vibes, give us 5 stars, give us a review, give us a thumbs up, do all that stuff. It helps spread the word about the show. But Gavin, I want to let you chime in because I know you've got lots of questions you want to dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve, it's really cool. Like, obviously you being a leader at such a young age, and I can only imagine, 20, 21, 22, leading a grocery store. How was that for you being so young? Because I'm just picturing the late 80s with a 40 to 50 to 60-year-old meat cutter in the back who does not want to talk to some snot-nosed kid who just recently got promoted to being the boss. So, and this doesn't have to be specific to this example, but like, as you were a young professional leader coming up, how did you combat some of those personalities that were significantly older, and how did you lead?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I did fight that a lot because I was a 21-year-old store manager in Altus, Oklahoma, at United Supermarkets. And I'd have customers come in and say, I need to speak to the manager. And I'd say, I'm the manager. And they'd say, no, I mean the day manager. I'm the day manager, the night manager, and all that. But you're right. I had everybody that worked for me was a whole lot older than me. And that's what I would tell you. I really, truly learned a lot of my people skills. Because I made a lot of mistakes, trust me, as a 21-year-old store manager who I mentioned this in one of my recent posts, but we didn't ever study leadership. We didn't ever have classes on leadership. We didn't talk about the right way to talk to people, the wrong way to talk to people. You just worked hard. And if you couldn't get your job done in 8 to 5, you might need to come in at 7. If you can't, you might need to stay till 6. If you can't get it done in 5 days, you might need to work 6 or 7. And if you couldn't get the job done, then it was bye-bye. So the other piece of that is I learned very early on, because I had one of the toughest stores in our company to run when I was 21, and it was a tough store, but in high volume store in military town, and we had high EBT sales, so we had a lot of fluctuation in business throughout any given month. And I learned real early on, you can't run one of these things by yourself. So one of my mantras that I teach today is, it's our job as leadership to take care of our team. Our team takes care of the customer, and the customer rewards the shareholder with the business. And it has to work in that order. And again, I learned that pretty early on. But when you're a young guy, one of the things I love to do is I love to ask questions. And so I'm thinking of a specific meat manager I had in Weatherford, Oklahoma, Jim Walls. He could have been my dad. He was that much older than me. But every time I'd go by, I'd say, hey, Jim, come tell me why do you merchandise this way? And teach me about gross profit. And I learned more about gross profit in merchandising for gross profit from him than anybody I'd ever worked with. And so that's when I kind of learned, if you'll just ask questions instead of just barking out orders, you're going to gain so much more trust with your people, and you're going to learn more. And then that's when everything works. So does that kind of answer the question?
It does. And I can just see like this path. So that specific example, obviously multiplied by however many years you were there in the store, you took that with you going forward as you became in those leadership positions. You got back out in the store, you interacted, you encouraged people, you empowered people.
Yep.
So,
right.
and I think that's so, I think there's a big miss in probably today's culture with a lot of companies because they just want to get to 0 to 100 million tomorrow or 0 to 1 billion tomorrow. And it is all about the people. So if you could just talk about how you, I guess, lead um, at Rouse's when you first get there, right? Like you're coming into a new organization, you've got all this experience. How long does it take that team to buy in?
Well, that's where I really came up with that Saturday email that I talked about, earlier, because, we were in 3 states, 64 stores. I couldn't get out to all the stores in any quick amount of time and spend the time you need to in stores. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as leadership in any organization is we kind of go out to the stores and we kind of buzz through them and we go on. Well, you can't go buzz through a store and call it a visit, because one, everybody knows you're there. And so usually if I went into a town that had multiple stores, by the time I got to the second store, everybody knew I was in town. So that was always fun. But you really want to take the time to walk the store and really talk to your people. And I do share this a lot when I'm speaking. It's when I would go into a store, you could see people, like if the first department might be the bakery department, you'd see them looking at you. And if you just walked on by, I can't even imagine, the disappointment on their face to know you were in their store and you didn't even come see them and talk to them. So I always intentionally tried to make sure I stopped, went back into the department, visited people, got to know them, asked them how they were doing, asked them what I could do to help them, what obstacles are in their way that I can help them with. And if you'll just do that, in the bakery department, the produce department, the meat department, deli department, the liquor department, the grocery department, the front end. Now that's a store visit. And there's so many of the things I heard about, it wasn't my job to fix it, but I left the store and then talked to the person that it was their job to either fix it or come in and help them. And that's one of my lessons that I teach in the book it's called Raise Your Hand. The title of the chapter is Raise Your Hand. It's not a crime to have a problem. It's a crime to have a problem and not raise your hand, because we have in most organizations, there's thousands of people that can help you. And if you'll just raise your hand, you'll get the help that you need. So but anyway, that's the key, is don't be in another one of my chapters is slow down. So as a leader, when you make a store, you got to slow down. You have to slow down and know, and that you're going to be talked about. Steve was in the store today. Oh, was he in a good mood? Hopefully they never had to ask that, right? And I always say this too, everybody asks 2 questions at the end of the day, is how was your day and what's for supper? Mm-hmm. So I want my people to decide at their breakfast table, they're going to give their people something good to say when they get asked that question at their supper table.
Yeah, I think for anybody who's working retail right now, if you're VP of merchandising, VP of operations, you need to make contact with just about everybody in the store, one way or the other. Like if it's grocery manager, assistant store managers, all that stuff, like you need to interact. If you're not interacting, then you're going to come off a certain way to that store personnel. And then I feel like there's no relationship building there at that point.
Right.
And it is really hard to recover from that, because now they're thinking Steve's coming in the store, he's not going to talk to anybody, and he's a jerk, and like you want the opposite of that. You want people to buy in to what your vision is.
Right.
And then also they should be happy when they see you. They shouldn't be panicked when they see you. And I feel like in today's retail, people are panicked when the VP of operations or director of operations comes into the store.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think my personal mantra has always been to teach, to coach, to train, to inspire. Teach, to coach, to train, to inspire. And if we just do that in every relationship that we have, again, especially in the stores, but you do it with your children. You teach, to coach, to train, to inspire. If we can do that with our kids, if as leaders in an organization, if we do that with our teams, everything's just so much better. And you have to be able to have tough conversations, raw conversations, but you never do it in a humiliating way, you know? And so again, I think if your style is to be personable first, get the trust of the team. And this is another thing I've always done for years and years and years. When somebody needs some tough training, tough, raw conversation, I just say, hey, can I coach you? Can I coach you on something? And I've never had anybody tell me no.
I love that.
Because if you think about it, if a coach says to you, hey, can I coach you on something? They want to help you. And they really care about you more than what they're going to coach you on. But you have to be in a mode to receive that coaching. So when you ask for that permission, it kind of relaxes everybody.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
One other thing, Wade, before I toss it over to you, Steve, when you hire people, do you have a very specific hiring process, or are you looking for something very specific, or talk about that for a hot minute here?
that's a great question, honestly. And a lot of times I won't talk about the job skills needed for the job, for the position. I'm more interested in getting to know you as a person, because I think and we teach this all the time. There's 3 questions that everybody wants to know in every relationship is, do you care about me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? And I don't want those to be questions that I have to answer yes or no to as a leader. I want those to be statements. I care for you. I can help you, and you can trust me. And when you have that kind of mantra with people, then again, when I get to know you as a person, usually one of my first questions is, tell me about what you do for fun. What's your hobbies? What makes you mad? What makes you happy? And so I really truly believe that when you get to know the person, because we can teach skills all day long. If you got a person that your values aren't aligned, and so I'll get into values, personal values, company values, because if you have people that their values they're just not lined up, you're going to have a hard time making it, regardless of what the job is. So I really try to get into value conversations, priority conversations, and personal, conversations. And again, we would get into work details and more specific in an interview, but man, and I'm a good people reader. So I usually know pretty quick. When I met Wade, I knew real quick, this was a good guy that we wanted on our team without even talking business. He's just a good person. So you hire for the person, you teach the skill.
I love that. Well, and we've got another ex-Rouse employee who's in Alaska now, Mr. Brandon Johnson. Welcome to the show, Brandon. He's was a store manager, category manager, worked under Steve. So again, the tree is branching all over the place. And just a couple tidbits from my experience with Steve, and some of my best memories. I think I shared this with him after I left. I should have probably done it while I was there, but some of my best memories of being at Rouse's, I was again fortunate enough to spend a decent amount of time with Steve, especially after I moved into my director role. And we did I don't know if it was Steve, if it was Baton Rouge or if it was Lake Charles. We did what is that, a 3-hour road trip that we did touring stores.
We did.
Just Steve and I in the truck and visiting stores. And of course, there was a lot of windshield time, so we got to talk a lot. But I witnessed firsthand walking with Steve in the stores and what he's talking about and how he treated people and how he approached everyone. And I can assure you, when Steve walked in a store, people weren't in fear of him. They were anxious to talk to him. They were looking forward to talking to him and sharing with him, because, that culture that he had cultivated with, with the bracelets, with the Saturday emails and everything he's talking about here today, they all heard it, and it trickled down from Steve to his, to the director level, to the, what we called RDOs, the regional RDOs were what regional directors of operations, and the store managers, and so on and so forth. It just trickled down. So I think, that's starting from the top and then truly seeing it practiced firsthand. I think, something for me, what he talked about earlier with, calling him out on the rules, it was not uncommon in the office for people to, and sometimes it was joking. Sometimes people were serious. They, I'd look, and Brandon's in the audience, so I can say this. I say, Brandon, rule number 2. Brandon, rule number 3, and it was just, it was kind of like this back and forth, but, it was holding each other accountable. And I, and our team did that. So, yeah, I think, Steve, we have an audience here that's live with us. And then we have a lot of people that listen after the fact, and it's all walks of life. We've got people from marketing here. We've got ex-employees here. We've got brands that listen to us, and talking a little bit about, your coaching teams, and oftentimes that's retail and stores, but your 5 rules and just leadership in general, can you give a little bit with regards to, a lot of our audience is an emerging brands that are just getting started. Maybe they're struggling, whether it's money, whether it's, they're at a crossroads, they don't know where to go, or they're just trying to break into that next 100 doors, whatever it is. Talk a little bit about how leadership and the 5 rules is applicable to someone in that situation, like outside of the retail side, but, now I'm a brand and I want to get into Sprouts, or I want to get into Rouses. Talk about the 5 rules, how they apply to that scenario.
Well, I would tell you that what the 5 rules are, the 5 expected behaviors that I'm going to go by. I'd like my team to go by it. And of course, obviously the bonus is they work at home. But as you guys know, if your foundation's right, and this would be what I would call non-negotiables. If your foundation's right, and this is what we did with the Houchins Food Group out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. We took a graph of the 5 rules and made them a foundation blocks. Then we put their 5 values as 5 pillars on top of those foundational blocks. And when your foundation's right and your values are right, and they're an ESOP, so everybody in the company's an employee owner, everybody wins. So again, just like building a house, if your foundation's right, you're going to be successful. If your values are right, you're going to be successful. And then when you get to execute all that together through a real short, memorable mission statement, which is what they've done as well, then that's how that works. So if it's a new emerging brand, if you got your foundation right, I would start with the 5 rules. This is how we're going to treat each other. And as you know, when we had top to top meetings, I would walk in the meeting with a bunch of wristbands, and I'd lay them on the desk. Everybody would get one, and we'd talk about the 5 rules, because I'm going to be this way to my vendor partners. And that's where I would tell you the grocery industry really evolved over the 50 years I've been in it. Is you guys know, vendors have been abused for years, and grocers got away with it. And it's horrible. It's horrible. It's not even human, the way some vendors get treated. So again, if on the retail side, this is our rules of engagement, I'm sharing with you, my vendor partner, these are our rules of engagement. And we totally respect each other in living out those 5 rules. We can call each other out on those 5 rules. And it's how we're going to behave towards each other. And these 5 rules actually do change behavior when you get them implemented right. And so again, one of my best people that I worked with at AWG and Pearl River was Mike Schumacher. And he was one of my first customers then when I launched the 5 rules. He wanted the 5 rules in his warehouse. And now he's over 3 warehouses in Kansas City and Nebraska and Kenosha, and the 5 rules are there as well now. So, but when you have the partnership between the retail side and the brand side, supplier side, the brand side, and I've got several brand companies that have put the 5 rules in too, it gets everybody on the same page, speaking the same language, expecting the same behaviors, and things just work better.
Right. I want to put, Gavin, I'm going to let you go back to you, but I neglected to give Steve's website verbally earlier in the show. I put it up on the screen, but his website is a brighter day, all one word, .life. Again, that's a brighter day .life. And you can see the 5 rules. He's got a blog. You can buy the book that we've been talking about. Everything is on there. Lots of content. And I know we want to get into the masterclass a little bit as well. But Gavin, did you want to? I think you had a question next. You wanted to go to.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, when you talk about drama and you talk about leading and all those kinds of things, there's gonna be a time in someone's life where they just can't lead the company anymore. When is enough, and when do you ultimately need to move on in that situation?
I love that question. 'Cause I get that question a lot, believe it or not. And I would tell you this: when you work for a company that allows toxic behavior and they don't seem to be bothered by it at all, then you got a decision to make. And I would tell you, I mean, obviously you're going to have a lot of swirling that happens in any career path, and you got to know that the relationship ending topics that you're not gonna play and be a part of. And if somebody and high in an organization, whether it's an owner or a CEO or the whole executive team or half the executive team or whatever, but trust me, everybody knows what's going on in an organization. It's what we allow to go on. And that's where I always get back to the people. I've been accused of being too protective of my people on many occasions. And I always raise my hand with pride and say, you're absolutely right. And I'm not going to change. I will protect my people to a fault. Then I've gone to my people and said, please don't do things that I can't defend. So that's how it works. And I've told many people that have worked for me, I will lose my job to save yours. Just don't do something. Don't do a Coldplay thing. Or I could talk about a lot of things there, but don't do things that I can't defend, that it makes me hard. It's hard for me to defend you. But if it just comes down to you needing somebody to have your back, I got your back.
Yeah, ultimately, if they're doing things that are going to make the company win, you can vouch for them all day. But if they're
Right.
doing things behind the scenes that are going to be bad for the brand,
Right.
or not protecting the brand, that's the dismissal of a core value at that point.
Right. And that's the
Um,
beauty of the rules is if they're doing something that can damage the brand, it gives you the opportunity to expand on the lesson of protect the brand.
I like that, and I like what you just kind of mentioned about that food group, Houchins. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Houchins Food Group. Yeah.
Houchins. So I want everybody to understand that it's never too late to install a new foundation or a new set of core values. They've been around a long time, and they might have their pillars, but they're looking to enhance those pillars.
Right.
Is there another example that you can share where someone is really well established or a company is really well established, and you've taken the 5 rules and
Yeah.
made it stronger?
Yeah. Well, and the only thing I'd tell you too about Houchins, Greg Rush, when he took over as president this year, they had bought several companies, different brands over the years, but they had never put them all under one kind of mission statement and brand statement with these values. So that's why they've launched this year, and it's 403 stores and 12,000 employees, 13 states that are now all unified with the 5 rules, the 5 values, and their new mission statement. So that's what his vision was, to bring them all together as one group. But one of my favorite stories to tell is I'm with Woodman's out of Wisconsin. Kristen Pop, you probably know her, and Clint Woodman. I work with those guys, and they're 110 years old. And for the first time in the history of their organization, they brought in myself and Dr. Randy Ross for a 2-year engagement on leadership growth with all their store directors and department managers and office people. And they've already just this year seen some remarkable results in the stores, remarkable results in the home office, from everybody coming together and just raising up, getting to a higher level. And so again, after 110 years in the business, it's the first time they've ever invested in leadership growth. And I do one-on-ones with a lot of their store directors when we meet quarterly. And almost all of them have said, oh, if we'd had this 15 years ago. And again, this is that we got to move from the work hard world to the work smart world. And you work smart by taking care of your people, not abusing them, not treating them as if they're less than, and treating them as equals. And when you love people, and I mean love people, success is going to come your way.
I like that. This is a really good example. So Woodman's, obviously they are a dominant retailer in that area. Their stores are huge.
Yes.
That example specifically, 15 years ago, 100 years ago, they didn't have a core set of values. So does that mean each one of those store managers was rowing in a different direction? It might be the same direction, just at a different pace, but now they're all rowing in the same direction, similar pace.
Yeah. And they did have kind of evolved values and kind of mission statements and things that they said. It just never was put on a wristband. And that's what so many of my clients have said is we kind of do a little bit of everything you bring, but we never put it on a wristband. We never put it in a book. We never put it in a masterclass. And to bring it all together so that people can remember it is what's been the game changer. And one of my favorite Woodman stories is one of the store directors I was talking to out of the Kenosha store on my last visit. When we start the masterclass, then all the department managers have a weekly meeting and they go over what they learned in that week's masterclass lesson. And they had a guy that was a dairy manager, been there 30 years, and he wouldn't even come in the room. He came to the door and stood in the door, and he was thinking, I got all this work to do. I don't have time to deal with all this leadership crap. The second week, he stepped inside the door. The third week, he sat at the table. And the fourth week, he participated in the conversation. And so, and that's why I love that, because you talk about buy-in. It took him 4 weeks to get there, but he's there now. And his job's so much easier because now he's teaching, coaching, inspiring his people, not just beating them up every time they come in and ripping them for what they didn't do right, which, as you guys know, was the way it used to be. That was the only conversation you ever had, was you always heard about everything you did wrong. Well, I'm going to focus on everything you're doing right, and I'm going to pepper in some of the stuff we can get better at, because what you focus on gets better. So let's focus on the positive, not the negative, because if all you ever focus on is the negative, everybody's going to feel like, you know what? It doesn't matter what you do. It's never good enough.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the masterclass. So again, we've got people from all walks of life here, all sides of the business, salespeople, you name it, they're here, right? Talk about the masterclass. Is it for one person? Is it only for an organization? What can the masterclass do if I'm a single, or one or two store operator, or 1-2 person brand, a founder, or just someone looking to enhance their leadership skills?
Well, and that's a great question, and we tried to set it up to where it works for everybody. So if you're just kind of new into the grocery business or new into leadership roles, and you want to personally go through a growth journey yourself, you can just go onto the website and get the masterclass and go through it at your own pace. But what I found that works best is if the leadership of the organization buys into it. And usually what I'll do is I'll go on site, meet with the executive team, show them, I'll do the 5 rules keynote, show them the masterclass. And then I also have 3 business objectives that I pepper into these conversations, because we want to work on the culture and get the culture right, but we also need to be learning how to run the business better. So 3 of my lessons that I teach with every company I work with, one is the law of the pennies, is really truly understanding we're in the penny business, but most people they've never done the math on how many units and or pounds they sell a year times a penny. What about 2 pennies? What about 3 pennies? What about 4 pennies? Because it can be millions of dollars in that penny swing that improves your margins. And then I talk about what I call one more. If you'll take your customer count, do the math times your average retail price. If you could just get every customer to buy one more item, you'd never have to worry about sales comps. You'll have double-digit sales comps year over year over year over year. If you'll be engaged with your customers and truly trying to, encourage them to buy more than what's on their list or buy more than what they had planned on buying. And then the third one is, are all the lights on? So many stores are dark. There's no customer engagement, and there's nobody talking to anybody, because I think there's kind of been a shift in what my job is as a retail clerk, is to just fill the counter. That's your job, but your real job is to connect with the customers. And as you guys know, you ever go to a real farmer's market, you're not getting by my booth, right? And if we could have that same thinking in the stores, you're not getting by my department. Nuh-uh, I'll be out there. Hold on, I'm come out there. I'm gonna show you this cake, show you this shrimp, show you this whatever, this new liquor we got in. But if we'll just engage with our customers, suddenly all the lights in the store get up on high. And when there's better light, customers see more. So that's kind of the message there.
I think it's really cool that we named this episode Retail 101. I think that last 3-minute segment just answered a bunch of Retail 101 questions. One of the things that I appreciated working for a retailer was always visiting the competition, because that's incredibly important. And it kind of just segues from what you just said is, hey, if you go to a competitor and those those clerks are way more engaging and we're not more engaging, that's a takeaway, right? We need to be
Right.
more engaging. We need to
Yeah.
implement that into our store. If their merchandising's better or their
Yeah.
merchandising's different, those
Right.
are all strong takeaways. How often, Steve, did you get out into the competition and focus on those guys?
Every week. Anytime I went to stores, so mostly I'd spend about half my time in the home office, because I was over the home teams on marketing and IT and purchasing. But when I would go to stores, every town that I went into, I made our stores, but I also made all the competition, because I truly believe you need to do that for several reasons. Obviously, today's environment, you better be looking at prices. You got to be looking at conditions. You got to be looking at variety and selection, and you definitely got to get a pulse for the customer service piece. And I always tell everybody, you can feel it when you walk in a store if that team's engaged with the customer or not. Because I've walked many stores past 20 team members of competition, and not only did they not speak to me, they didn't even look at me. And one of my recent articles in the Shelby Report, the title was, please don't ignore me as a customer. And again, that's why I think this customer engagement piece is so critical today, because what I coach and teach to a lot of my companies, how many stores do your customers drive by to come to your store? And why do they drive by all the competition to come to your store? You need to figure it out. Why are they doing that? But if they're not doing that, if there's a store or two between them and you, and they never make it to you, why are they never making it to you? What are these guys doing that you're not doing? And obviously, I've been in this business long enough. Before, everybody's price list was on the web, and now they use our free Wi-Fi to check our competition's prices to see if they want to buy it from us or not. So you better be right on your prices. You got to be close. A lot of times you can't compete with those that they don't have to make a lot of money on groceries because they make it on other stuff. But we have to make sure we're close on price. But the most critical piece is that customer engagement. People will drive by and pay a little more for your product if you're a stellar customer service organization.
Yeah, and just my comments on that. I moved from Michigan down to the Carolinas back in 2019. Had never really interacted too much with Chick-fil-A, but they have great customer service, right? You can't make it out of that line without being told "Have a blessed day" or whatever. And then also down here is Publix, and I can remember I think the first time my wife shopped Publix, she's like, I can't tell you how many people ask me if I've found everything okay.
Yeah.
It's like every time you turn the corner, whether it's produce, grocery, wellness. So customer service just goes such a long way in retail, but then also QSR.
Yeah, I agree. And Publix is great organization, good people, and they're an ESOP. So again, that makes it, you don't have to try to convince people to treat it like you're an owner, because you're an owner. So
Right.
you have a tendency to be a little better there, but they do a great job. I agree.
Right. Well, we're coming close on time. I'm going to put Steve's website up again for those of you that are interested or listening after the fact. Again, it's abrighterday.life. Steve, is that the best way to contact you? Obviously, you're on LinkedIn. You've mentioned the Shelby Report a little bit, and I don't think we really dove into that. So you're writing is it a monthly article you're writing for the Shelby Report?
Yeah, I started last October. They wanted to have, and I think this is kind of the evolution of the grocery business, is everybody's realizing that we have to be focused on leadership. So they asked me to start writing a monthly guest writer article on leadership. So I've been doing that now for 12 months. And it's in there. It goes out to about 74,000 subscribers every month. And there's also a link in there for the website. And then, obviously just to contact me through the website, there's a get in touch with me on the website. And then there's also, as a Maxwell certified executive speaker and coach, I'm also on the John Maxwell page. So if you go to his site and look for speakers or coaches, you can find me there too. So.
Excellent. So yeah, if you're not in tune with the Shelby Report, what I love about the Shelby Report is they have the different versions, right? So there's the Midwest, there's the South, yeah. There's all these different versions. So you get the stories, and I'm sure your articles are in every different version, but they have regional focus, so you can go in and see what's happening in that region. And I really enjoy what they do at the Shelby Report. So, Steve, anything else? Is anything we didn't hit on? Because we want to be cognizant of your time. But anything we didn't hit on that you want to touch on before we go?
No, I definitely appreciate you having me on your podcast here. I've enjoyed watching your journey as well, and I think you're really changing the industry. And going to continue to change the industry, and that's why I think we've got to all come together with this one kind of common expected behaviors, and then again everything just works better. And I will be at the NGA Executive Conference in October, and the Houchins team will be with me on stage for one of the sessions, and then Kristen Pop with Woodman's will also be with me. So just sharing their success stories of implementing the 5 rules and what they've seen there. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Steve, we have about 1 minute left.
Go ahead.
Any books? Do you have anything working on in the future, or any books you would highly recommend any young leaders in the audience to read?
Oh my goodness, yes. I would tell you that my latest read has been I don't think I have it handy, but it's How to Work with Complicated People. Because and this guy is really shoot. I might have had. I don't know how to get that. But anyway, that's my latest book, and I did write about that in the Shelby Report as well, because he really helps. Everybody's complicated. I'm complicated. You're complicated. We're all complicated. So how do we all get along? We got 5 generations in the workplace today. So we have to figure this out. The easiest thing to do is to ignore people or try to change them. And we know that doesn't usually work very well. I'm a big fan of Mel Robbins, her 5-second rule, and then Let Them. That's one of my favorite books that I've read recently. It's Mel Robbins on Let Them. But How to Work with Complicated People. And then I also got Chris Robbins' new book out. This just came out, From Drift to Drive. And it's how you go, from kind of being successful and being in idle mode to really trying to get into drive mode and keep that success coming.
Steve, on the How to Work with Complicated People, that sounds more business psychology more than anything. And that's something that I've personally learned a lot on over the last handful of years, is once you get into those leadership positions, it's not necessarily about the numbers anymore. It is about people and understanding people better and the psychology of that. And I'm just curious if that's that direction that the book goes.
Yeah, it is. And it's really trying to understand people and don't get bogged down in the differences. Work on how you work together is really the message of that. And he, we've all known about IQ and EQ, and he introduces us to 3 more Qs. And one of them is adaptability Q. How quick can you adapt to change? The other one's technical Q. How's your technical IQ? And then the fifth one is DQ, and it's decency quotient. Are you decent and kind? And then that's what I think, again, has left the planet, is decency and kindness, and in a lot of places. Because on the retail side, we kind of get a lot of angry people coming in our stores. So it's easy to become angry just like them. And we need to be different. Take the high road. My favorite, most recent John Maxwell book is High Road Leadership. I just finished that. That's a great one. So high road leadership, take the high road, and you'll do much better than taking the low road, because the low road's the one that's packed today.
Well, and I think it's one of the reasons, Steve, and putting a bow on this thing, it's one of the reasons why you are the person, and that you are the leader that you are. You practice what you preach. I mean, this wasn't staged. Those books are on Steve's desk, right? I mean, he eats, breathes, sleeps, you name it. This is how he's become who he is. And Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I can't thank you enough for what you've meant to me personally and professionally. Well, we only spent just under 2 years together in the workplace. The impact you've had on me is lifelong, and it's and the friendship now that we have is very special, and I can't thank you enough for that. So Gavin, anything else before we go? We'll be back here next week. Do we know, have we ironed out what we're doing next week? Is it cemented or not?
I think it's cemented. Yeah, I think it's our spins episode, and we look forward to talking to Scott Dicker then. And Steve, thank you so much. Super enlightening conversation. Wade, I'll let you take it home.
Yeah, Steve, thank you. I just, again, thank you so much for who you are and what you've meant to me. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wade. That goes both ways.
All right. We'll see everybody back next week.
Take care.
Everybody.